So today I am really happy to be with you. Thank you for having me. We are going to be talking about transforming with optimization. I too really enjoyed Mark's talk, and he did a great prep session for what I'm about to go into. Today I'm going to be talking to you about transforming with optimization. As we have all seen, as we're all living in this age of transformation, I'm coming to you with a case about proving along the way, optimizing it, find the best way forward. So today we're going to talk about transforming with optimization. Let me give you a little background about myself. I'm a creative by trade. I have been doing this a really long time. I won't age myself, but Full Cup Creative is a 15-year-old company. We are a data-driven creative optimization agency that builds programs for large enterprise companies to help them get more efficiency out of their spend and a better user experience. So we handle about $250 million in spend through our pages a year. So we get a lot of opportunity to test. So let's move on and talk a little bit about some definitions to set up this talk. What does it mean to transform? You know, we are living in a world where things are happening really, really fast. Transforming really means to make a dramatic change in the form or appearance of. I can think of nothing else better to describe what we've been going through. We are all in a state of transformation. The world's in a state of transformation. That is even playing out in a grander scale in the digital world. Digital adoptions, digital transformations are happening by force nature. Even if it was on the docket for a company to have a transformation, whether that be moving into e-com or changing the customer journey or going from a brick and mortar to an online business, whatever it becomes, that has been accelerated. And I have seen this with clients all over. There have been early adopters that have seen an opportunity to prove it while they transform. And there's others who are late adopters who are missing the opportunity for the incredible learnings that can happen at this stage in our world and at this stage in how technology is affecting our businesses. So let's talk about what a digital transformation is. We just named a couple of them. Mark just rattled off several: e-com, healthcare, entertainment. We no longer go to movie theaters. We watch them on at home. We no longer visit the doctor. We do it online. There are digital transformations happening all over at a rate that is unprecedented. Digital transformation is the adoption of digital technology to transform businesses or services. We're in the midst of that right now. What I don't see a lot of happening is the proof along the way. The proof, is it working, or are we just transforming because we feel forced to? I have seen so many companies go through big transformations, even as small as a redesign, which can have big impact on your brand and your business, all the way up to going from lead generation to e-commerce. And if you are not proving it and getting clarity of path along the way, you are leaving opportunity and performance on the table. Let's get into a little bit more. What is optimization? And I know we're getting into some basic definitions here, but it's really to set up of transformation is happening. It's happening more in the digital world than anywhere else. Obviously, we're living it too. Transformation is all around us. What does it mean to optimize? And let's just take a basic definition of optimization. It is making the best or most effective use of a situation or a resource. We've got to find the best way forward. We can't do this blindly just because we know we need to change. We need a process. We need a regimen. We need to stretch and grow those muscles so we can get better at this. So let's talk about how we can do that. We want to optimize our transformations. Anything you're going through, it doesn't just have to be in marketing. It could be a back-end platform system that's changing. It could be your email platform that's changing. It could be how you run your meetings. If we can prove it along the way and get clarity through testing, we can really start to make foundational changes that allow us to scale in velocity and in performance increase. By optimizing and by getting a roadmap in front of you, and we'll talk about how to do that here in a couple of slides. But by optimizing your transformation, it is not just about one day you go from A to B, it's a switch. It's about measuring those increments along the way. What were the nuances of the change? What were the parameters of the change? If you can get Two, clarity of path. You know which way to go. So many businesses make big sweeping changes. I mentioned the redesign earlier. I know I cannot see you, but in the virtual show of hands, how many of you have been a part of a redesign where the company changed branding overnight but didn't measure the impact of that branding, or changed a user flow path and didn't test it, or changed a back end, lead tool that they didn't change? If you do not get clarity from a baseline to the next move, you're not going to know. By optimizing, improving it, and getting results along the way, you're going to get clarity of path. That is, okay, we know this direction doesn't work, or this one does work, and it helps us get our steps in front of us. This allows for future vision. You are no longer afraid to tackle bigger things for fear of not knowing its impact. By optimizing and quantifying your changes along the way, it allows us to get to a better future state. So not only can we prove the transition that we've done is good or bad, or we were able to course correct it along the way, but it allows for our future state to be much more open. There's nothing unturned in a company that adopts the culture of experimentation. This is also a team sport. I hear so often in my business, optimizing, it's happening, but it's happening in a silo. They're only doing that in, paid media. So what I really encourage companies to do is to break this out. We believe in omni-channel optimization programs, and we can talk a little bit about how that looks. But this is a team sport. We're really trying to share knowledge across the organization so that no one is in a silo, that so companies can rise up higher, not just one business unit or department. The entire organization rises and up levels. Here's a statistic that I found surprising, but I think it shows the level of opportunity we have in front of us. Only 17% of marketers use A/B tests to improve conversion rates. Now, this is landing page specific, but I would venture to say that this is spreading out into other parts of business. There's a lot going on and changing, and we're not proving whether it's working or whether it's not. There's opportunity out there. We need to optimize our transformations. Proof. So let's talk about measuring impact. Before we actually get to the performance piece and improving, we need to understand the impact. So anytime you're going through a big transition, we need to be doing this, but this should start to be a culture of experimentation where we are constantly trying to transform ourselves through optimization, not just because of forced circumstances on the outside. The average length of our clients stay with us between 8 and 10 years. And it's an interesting position because we are essentially beating our own work year over year. So I can tell you, for these long year optimization programs, you can really, really get more year over year if you can dig in and deal with that roadmap. So let's get to the next slide. What are we measuring? Big changes. Make sure you document and measure changes throughout your organization. What are the changes going on? Once we get there, we need to establish those baselines, and then we get those goal metrics early. That way we know where we're going, where we've come from. So reporting is really important when you optimize, and those baselines are really important, particularly before a change. This allows us, through documentation and measuring, to clarify the next steps. This goes back to the clarity of path. By documenting along the way and measuring, we can see what did not work and what did and move forward. In 2019, there's $190 billion invested in mobile. By 2022, that's expected to be $280 billion. That is a lot of increase, 90 billion in increase that we expect to see in mobile advertising. My point in bringing this slide today is to show you, if we do not get involved with these transformations and in optimizing our programs overall, even if it's a creative, a campaign, a channel, we are leaving opportunity and performance increases on the table, right? Users are changing. Our world is changing. Now more than ever, we need to step in, and we need to experiment with what's going to work best to help support the user on their journey and to meet them right where they are in the buying path. So let's talk about how we measure success before we get into the tenets of a good optimization program. We want to measure success and have a central source. Have a central source of data, whether that's Google Analytics, whatever your source of the gospel is for data. It's important that that's shared, not just with the optimization team, or if you have a central person who's involved with optimization or an outside agency. Where the source of data is so important and needs to be established along with those baselines, like we discussed in the previous slides. This is also journey support. A lot of our clients have call centers. So, with the disruption of the pandemic, people were not able to go into call centers. So, changes again in transformation and changes in digital landscape force us to really look at where the users need support and maybe interrupting what used to be there with an additional level of support. Target did a really great job of this with the pickup. They jumped on it right away at the beginning of the pandemic. Best Buy did the same thing, where it was, curbside pickup within, felt like a matter of days after stores were shut down, and they did it seamlessly. That's supporting along the way and integrating these learnings across touch points. This is shared success. If we communicate across the organization, we can roll out some of these learnings. Let's say that we had a great form set up with a multi-step form conversion path that's really working great on lead gen. Let's try this on the .com. Of course, prove it. Let's try it through an email series. Let's try it in other ways that we can roll out and help shortcut to success with the learnings that we can share across organization and channels. This helps us improve funnels so we get clean data, a really supported customer user journey, and that way we can support these rollouts and with consistent learning. This is an interesting fact that 57% of shoppers surveyed say that they not being able to shop on mobile is important when deciding which retailer or brand to buy from. Mark previously was talking about the different generations and how not being able to try on the clothes really made a difference. Where you meet your journey, your user in their journey will make a difference on whether they stay with you or move on. Users no longer are brand specific. They're no longer brand loyal. Obviously, they have influence on how the brands support their values. But if they're looking for a pair of Nikes and you're in their way by not having a mobile experience for them to easily shop on, they will find that next experience. You must support the users where they are. Testing is a great way to determine that, what the threshold is. Let's talk about a vision for the future and a vision for an optimization program. We see this a lot in companies, but this is a fact: about 23% of large organizations cite outdated workflows as a top internal barrier. As a consulting agency of expert services, we're often brought in because they've tried optimization programs and failed or not able to get as much out of them as they could. So often, we really just need to come in and get that culture of experimentation back on track and really help visualize and create vision around what the optimization program can really do. An optimization program that involves testing, creative, UX, research, analysis, behavioral change really can be a change agent in an organization. And that is not to make organizations scared or concerned. It's really to create a culture of experimentation so we can do these other pieces of this program. We can create foundational learnings by quantifying changes with real-time data so they can choose the best way forward. By multi-channel support, close those gaps. Now more than ever, dealing with this pandemic, we cannot have siloed channels. You may jump from mobile to desktop. You may jump from the phone to online. You may jump from chat. We must know where they are. We must know how to support, and we must know that they're integrated so it does not feel like a disjointed experience. We must meet them where they are. This allows scale, and this is where I've seen programs be really successful, is by being able to maximize impact by optimizing its scale. Not just this one or two test dabble. We're talking about consistent rollout, deep channel integration, and testing in a way that we can roll up. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. This allows us to help solve business problems for companies. It helps solve issues by proving out ideas in an experimentation sandbox. This goes back to our transformation. If you were about to do a major overhaul of a backend platform or a backend integration, I would recommend carving that off into a sandbox, taking a portion of your traffic and testing it there. That way, if we fail, we can take it offline and take it away and analyze it, what we need to do. If we're successful, we feel more confident about rolling it out. So, testing and optimization really can help solve business problems and help them really, again, going back to that clarity of path and having those baselines to judge from. Again, this goes back, we are a user advocacy agency. We want users, we're users in the market. We want it easy. We want these things premeditated. We want to be understood about the seamlessness, that technology that we demand. So we want to support customers in their journey. Let your customers guide and shape their own experience. And that's so important in transformations. In businesses, sometimes we think we know the way forward because it looks good on paper, or it looks good in black and white, or it makes sense. But until the users start interacting and telling us what they really need, either through action or engagement, we really do not know. Let's talk about what a roadmap looks like. Optimization programs do really well in quarters. I can tell you from experience, planning a year roadmap for testing opportunities across channel cannot be very successful unless it is a living, breathing document. Optimization programs tend to be changed depending on who is influencing them. If leadership has different goals, if the business changed, as you can see with the pandemic, the goals that were set out for 2020 were not the ones that we were optimizing to, and we had to shift and pivot and be adaptable to those things. Here's a framework of a roadmap that we use. This goes into a spreadsheet for a roadmap for 90 days that we are beating the streets on a 30-day cycle. But really, it goes back and starts with that vision that we're talking about for what the program goals really are heading back up here. What do you need out of this program? That's the importance of this slide. What do you need your optimization program within your agency, your business to do? What is the goals? And then getting really tactical and coming up with the vision and our goals, and then looking at our stack, in our tech stack. We have a unique mix at Full Cup Creative of how we throw in some behavioral analytics, some creative predictive tools on top of A/B testing and AI, so then we can cherry pick according to the client's needs and problems we're trying to solve, the right stack for them. A lot of times they come with their own stack, and it's about us finding the most efficient way, again, optimization, not just testing, but the most efficient way and process to align with them. This really is about getting the right team in place. And we'll talk more about what makes a great team here in a minute. But after you have these three, the goals and the tech stack and the team, and I know it sounds silly to revisit this on a quarterly basis, but we all know those things change so often. And if they don't, then you're all the way down the road. We want to look at process here, and we want to follow process and keep it, not only with when to call a test, the size of test, when we get to statistical significance, how we're segmenting the audiences, how we're reporting. All those things are so important to continue to follow the same process unless we've optimized the process and made it more efficient. Once we're following these tenants, we really want to look at the channels. Is this a test that we want to roll out in mobile and desktop? Is this a test that we need to roll out across other business units to judge it? Really looking at where the best opportunity is. I can tell you that not all channels are created equal, right? And you can get different results in channels. So if you have tremendous success in one, you may reduce the variations and roll it out, but I would verify it in other channels. But identifying where this is going to be impactful. The next thing I think is important for roadmaps are themes, and we can talk more about this. But the idea of themes are, for example, we have a lot of clients moving from lead generation to e-com. The theme would be e-com rather than 30 tests that may be a button change or unrelated tests that can't layer up level to a bigger learning. We find are hard to report back. It's harder to get execs to their attention and to really get their ear. Themes allow to test within a theme that there may be 30 e-com tests. They need to be productive. They need to be moving down the road, but rolling your A/B or AI test up into a broader theme can really help draw out some performance increases. Of course, once you have your themes, we need to beat up on those hypotheses every time and really make sure it's clear and that it can be picked up by anyone and understood. And once we get that hypothesis down, we want to look at test ideation. So out of that hypothesis, if then we may come up with 10 test ideas. Again, not all test ideas are created equal. We want to find high priority out of that. And I circle you back. The high priority must align with the goals. So it is hard to choose tests sometimes. And if you get in a situation where you're making suggestions for tests, the client's making suggestions for tests, it is important to have a prioritization process, because a lot of cooks in the kitchen, no pun intended for full cup, can really convolute learnings and dilute performance opportunity. So it's a great constructive conversation, but out of the ideas, the choice has to be made about which are the highest priority in alignment with the goals. Let's talk about some programs over the years that I've really seen work. Again, we've been focused on optimization for over the last decade, and the technology and the industry has changed so much that out of all that time, I can tell you programs that work and don't, these tenets really do hold true. Programs that work really do have a program champion. Could be an agency person, this could be an in-house person, and we very much encourage companies to have their own in-house teams and really support that. They need to be able to carry this on their own. So having an agency champion and an in-house champion, or whatever your mix up it is, it's important to have someone that can hold the tenets of the program up. A single point of contact that helps vet, test out, and create priority through the goals, and most importantly, the data. So every program that does really well has that one person in the seat. That person, if it's internal with the company, may have a committee and have different business units that they're connecting with, but they are the single person that can tell you where those tests are. Because a lot of times with these tests, they have to fall in line again, where they have either can only test one test at a time, or they can't give up the traffic, or they don't want to increase the risk across channels. So again, priority is so key. Again, we talk about themes. Themes help align to goals and isolate improvements and help patterns emerge. I really feel strongly about testing into themes. That could be audience. That could be product type. That could be the interaction of how the flow works, like we were talking about with e-com. And that doesn't mean that you carry these for the whole quarter even, but rolling them up into one test does not. I would encourage you, if you have sweeping changes of 300, 400%, you need to go back and dissect that test, make sure your variables are clean, and that you look at it again through the eye of theme. The other thing that helps programs really work are just good bones. This goes back to everything that we talked about in the beginning about getting those good goals, getting everything that we saw on the roadmap, making sure that we have all the tech that we need, that the baseline measurements are there before you get started. It is worth the setup, because in some of these clients that we've had a decade, we are still referring back to the baselines that were set. The programs that get stuck, and these are not going to be a shock to any of you, they are common problems in our businesses as a whole, but silos keep us from performing, and they keep learnings limited. So optimization is typically, people get excited when they're around it in the business and want to learn more about it. And I think the more transparent you can be about what's happening and what's coming up, that we can really get learning. And again, that culture of experimentation. And there's a tipping point there where you see companies, the first thing they'll say when they get a new idea is, let's test it. And that is the change that we're looking for. The next one where programs get stuck is scope creep. Make sure you have clear hypotheses and test focus. This is why redesigns get stuck so many times. If you are changing every element on the page, and not just in a skin of CSS, if you're changing location, hierarchy, navigation, you are going to get convoluted results. Testing would be better in a rapid, iterative fashion where you carve down those variables and then you test back to back, either with additional variations, or we have seen AI really do well with a redesign because it can help, the algorithm can help build combinations through new elements. So not only do you know what redesign combination is working, which elements were the contributors to that success. So watch scope creep. And if the results are confusing or you don't know why you won, I would go back and make sure your hypothesis is clear and that the test has focus without too many variables included. Roadmap U-turn. Again, your company or yourself as a practitioner are going to come up with your own roadmap. This is what I've seen work. But anytime we start backpedaling on our goals or on our testing source or on our channels, things can get hairy. At that point, it's time to stop, go back and look at our hypothesis and test focus and pick right back where we are on that roadmap, because it would be better to stop and minimize risk and get right back on that horse and find the next possible, again, the best way forward for optimizing. And finally, the places that get stuck are goal metric changes. Again, it goes back. Everybody knows that time where it's like, oh, that's the KPI you were watching. I was looking at sales instead of leads. These are important clarifications to get at the beginning of every quarter. And importantly, before every test, we're laying those goals out on a quarter basis. But we need to make sure if leads is the primary KPI and we're looking at sales, we need to make sure we're tracking both from the very beginning. Even if we're optimizing to leads, but we're looking at the quality that's happening and getting down into sales. So making sure we identify those goal metrics in the beginning is key. This is a statistic from our own agency, and we have found that clients that follow a stringent optimization program with a roadmap are 16 times more successful in performance increases than those who don't. And I have seen this play out time and time again. There is more on that vine, and just the rapid, iterative marching down that same road quarter after quarter, you will uncover hidden performance increases. Let's talk about high value optimization. High value optimization, and we've defined it here on the next slide, is the idea of an optimization program that aligns with business goals and increases performance and customer support. If we are only doing these tests for our own improvement in performance, we're missing the point. We have customers who are interacting with us, who are trusting our brands, who are believing what we're putting out there through our either transparency or lack of transparency. It is important, again, that not all optimization is created the same. Now, if you're just getting started, get started, dig in. There's plenty to learn there. Once you've been testing for a while, you really, really need to sit back and look at that roadmap against the company goals. Again, a lot of our clients had digital goals for 2020 that shifted, and we had to shift them with them, and that becomes high value. So if more money is now going out of brick and mortars and into digital, that is high value to the company, and we need to have an optimization program that supports that. So it's not just an optimization program that's out there spitballing in a silo. This is an optimization program that's integrated across channels, and it supports business goals. So it's easy to report up. It gets execs excited because it is supporting their goals, and there's synergy around the optimization program as a whole. And finally, we're going to end on a couple of slides here on KPI to I, just a play on words. Can be a deal breaker in meetings if it changes or we're not clear on it. It is so important to see eye to eye on what our key performance indicators are. A couple of things to really watch out for. Again, clear goals. Agree upon primary and secondary metrics. Stick to them until a new plan is needed. Know what you're optimizing to. And also know what you're optimizing is affecting. Again, if we are messing with lead generation and iterative rapid testing on them, and all of a sudden we have great increase in form submits, but the sales quality is going down, what's happening? We're diluting the path. It's important to look at these balances across primary and secondary, even tertiary goals. Monthly roundups. Roll up those tests and learnings monthly to support the roadmap. We're talking about quarterly roadmaps, and I'm encouraging you once a month at minimum to show value and to roll these up. And this is where it goes back to themes. Themes are a great way to roll up learnings, to up level them, and easier to share. Last is quarterly meetings. Build the program monthly and meet up quarterly to re-clarify and realign. Businesses change, seasons change, customers change, needs change, budgets change. It is important to realign, still sticking to the tenets and the structure of your program, but moving and being able to adapt with your clients is key. And finally, it's tell the story. And this is a wrap up of what we're talking about. But really, when we are in the business of optimization and we're in the business of transformation, being able to tell our story. That is what's happening everywhere on technology right now. We want to share our stories. And as companies, we want to be able to tell the story really clearly to our clients. It's important that we have focused reporting. Keep your report data forward, concise, and consistent. Make sure you have alliances. And this is where it comes off. If you are working on the email team and you go align with the brand team on what's going on, go align with the econ team and see what's happening. But make alliances across your organization, either whether you're an external consultant or inside. Keep sharing the success with your team and client alliances and encourage sharing and success rollouts. Again, if we do not make those alliances, they are improvements happening in a silo and it's not impacting the bottom line like we really could be doing. We want to visualize the data, highlight behavior or performance changes in addition to the final results. People want to see the change and people want to see what is not working as much as what is working. So again, this goes back to clarity of vision. This goes back to clear hypotheses. But once we get that data in the door, it is important where you can add color, behavioral analytics, to see how people are engaging, the click, the depth of engagement, visualizing that data in a way that can help point us to new opportunity or help increase the learning for the success or even failure. You're not going to win with every test, nor should you. If you are winning with every test, we need to come up with harder hypotheses and problems to solve. And again, knowledge is power. Develop a system where learnings are shared and it's key to a company-centric benefit. That in those monthly roundup meetings, we're making sure in dispersing this information across the organization in a way that's actionable for them. And just to round this out, the essentials for success within an optimization program are to, number one, quantify these changes. Start with baselines. And we are not just talking about optimizing with transformations alone. It's just a really good place to start with what's going on in business right now. But we want to quantify all changes in our business. We don't want to draw change out. It doesn't have to be that way. If our vision for our optimization program is to be foundational learning, we start and we build that out. If we want to scale and increase velocity, we again need to start with those baselines and quantify the changes along the way to tell our story. You want to build a program with vision. You don't want to spitball with these optimization programs. You want to have a long range view and walk it out in a very consistent, iterative way. Adjust when you need to. Be the adaptable practitioner that we talked about. But from the beginning, I encourage you to look long range and think about the vision for the program and its real central importance to the business. We want to focus on high priority testing. All testing is not created equal. All experimentation is not created equal. Get those ideas down, weigh them against the company goals, and find the highest priority with opportunity. You're going to need that traffic, right? You need the problem to solve. Finding those crosshairs between those key performance indicators and those goals is where the high priority lies. And finally, tell the story, document, get it on slides, pass it up, but tell your story. Again, my name is Amanda Simmons. I thank you so much for your time and listening today. It was my pleasure to be here, and I hope you get out there and start testing.
All right, that was fantastic, Amanda. I've got a question from Hayun from Seoul. Asks, how do you align the teams when they have uncommon goals that are not advertising related for conversion rate optimization? And just to think about our own journey together, because I'm a big fan of Full Cup Creative. I've been on the brand side and worked with you and worked with a bunch of other agencies. Pulling an agency in that's focused on social, or another creative agency, or another advertising partner. I mean, getting them to start thinking about it from the page where most of the people interact is not where a lot of people's mindsets start.
I hear this a lot, and I really appreciate the question because it's a real problem. It really is. And that's why you hear me talk about silos a lot. I think we've got to get back in. This is where those alliances come in, and then maybe it's a committee if you're working within your organization. But we like to collaborate with other agencies. We need to be working our best for the client in a synergistic way. So that's how Full Cup approaches it. Come onto the table. We need to talk. Now, I think having a clear owner is key in this position. You want an owner of the program. That could be somebody internal, but you need someone, and this goes back to program champion. But if we're really focusing on what the users or the customers' needs are, those confusing points can start to fade away because it really starts to show up for priority. So if we're looking at what the customer needs and what the business goals are, as much as people want to clamor for their ideas and too many cooks in the kitchen, priority should start and hierarchy should start to come forward. So I hope I helped answer that. If not,
Yeah.
please take my information. I'd love to answer it more for you.
Yeah, and that sounds very similar to what my role was when we were working together, trying to break down silos. So I love it. That was a fantastic presentation. Thank you again for your time, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.